everybody. Welcome to this episode of From the Suggestion Box, navigating feedback, the good, the bad, and the say what? Not letting the good stuff go to your head and the bad stuff go to your heart. Today, I have my esteemed and distinguished guest, Miss Laura Bruni. I'm so excited to have her. Laura is president and CEO of the Arts and Business Council of Miami since 1988. She has empowered the creative ecosystem and helped develop Miami's billion-dollar art industry. Directing the Arts and Business Council for 30 years, she has led the movement to keep the arts in business with high-impact partnerships between corporations, small businesses, entrepreneurs, and the cultural community. Laura is a tireless cheerleader, promoting the value of the arts to the corporate community in South Florida, activating arts enthusiasts to volunteer for arts programs, supporting the cultural community, and encouraging our residents and business leaders to support and attend the arts. Oh my gosh, Laura.
That's a lot to live up to.
Man, that is amazing. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
And just so you all know, how I met Laura is I am a board member for the Arts and Business Council, and that is how our relationship began. And it's been just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so I am so glad that you've decided to join us today. So let's just get right into it. We are talking about feedback, right? So in your 30 years of everything that you've been doing, have you ever received any type of feedback that either made you go, what? Or it was something that really helped you grow professionally? Or, it was just something that you just knew was so outrageous, you just let it roll off your back, like roll off like water off a duck's back, something like that. Anything, go for it. Tell us what you got.
Well, I've done this for a long time now, so I've gotten a lot of feedback from various constituencies. But I think the most valuable feedback I got, and it was fairly early in my career, because I actually started in sports broadcasting. I got my degree from the University of Florida in journalism, and I worked for CBS Sports. What? And this was at a time when women were not in sports. So I had a lot of negative feedback, some in a profane nature from the sports people that worked at CBS Sports.
Yeah.
But I volunteered for the Arts and Business Council, and I really loved it. And I just kind of fell into this job. I took a big pay cut when I took the job and a bigger cut in benefits, but I guess it was the right job because I've been here for over 30 years now. So the best feedback I got was Michael Spring, the director of the Miami-Dade Department of Cultural Affairs. We have worked closely with them for the whole time I've been with the organization. We do a lot of work. He always says that I'm adjunct staff, and that if we didn't exist, he'd have to have a department that does what we do. So we have a really close relationship. I work a lot with them. And he is the master at taking negativity and turning it into positivity, but making the person think that they came up with this idea. So one of the most important things he ever told me was, do not take it personally. When people tell you something negative, especially in the workplace, they're telling you something about your program, something, like logistics. It's not a personal insult to you. So he said, first of all, do not take it personally. Second of all, he said, don't explain too much. He said, if you're explaining, you're losing. The more that you keep talking and defending yourself, the more ammunition you're giving the negative person to use against you. So rarely does somebody, if you bring up a point and they're like, oh my God, you're right, I didn't think of that. They don't do that. So those were his 2 points. And what he said is when you're in a situation like that, you try and diffuse it, you stay nice, and you keep it professional. So, you talk about, I understand what you're saying. That's a good point. Like you kind of try and validate what they're saying. And then later you can turn around and work with them to say, I understand what you were saying. What can I do to improve that? And what can you do to improve our relationship, so that you build that? And I have used that so much in my career. And I really, when I'm feeling that pressure to lash out, I just get mindful and I say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to validate them. And it works all the time.
Wow. That's amazing. Man, that is good stuff. And Michael Spring yet comes up again. He might be a person I need to reach out to because
oh my God, if you get an audience with Michael Spring, you will walk away better. I mean, he is just a master at what he does, and he loves the arts community. He knows the arts community. He's kept the arts in business for 35 years.
Right. Okay, so here's the question that I have for you. I'm very excited. One thing that we like that you didn't put in your bio, I have to like toot our own horns, that you are also the co-author of
Yes.
Informations for Nonprofit Board Members. We collaborated on that. It was great. We came up with this amazing journal. So speaking of board members, right? A lot of times people forget that board members are volunteers because people are just so used to, you have your board and they're elected in and they're doing it, but they're still giving of their time. And so I wanted to get your perspective of, and also because since you have a program that matches potential board members with organizations that need really great board members, like that match. I wanted to get the point of view of somebody who works a lot with board members as volunteers. And do you have any suggestions of feedback of how to work with board members? Because a lot of times board members are very highly skilled in the area that they are, and they are bringing their expertise. But sometimes does that ever cause like a know-it-all, like I know everything type thing, and they don't want to listen? And if so, like how do you provide feedback to people like that and still be able to get out of them what they need in a really great way so that the organization has what it needs?
Well, boards are one of the number one weak links in a lot of organizations. If you talk to any executive director, from the smallest to the biggest, they're usually unhappy with their board, mainly because there's a disconnect between what they want and what they need and what the board member wants and what they need. And as you said, the board members are volunteers. So you've got to really make sure like that they're getting something valuable in return for their service to you, because they are donating their time, talent, and treasure. So it's important that, first of all, that you have the expectations at the beginning set out. So I always tell, we have a program called Building a Better Board that we do. Every group that's featured on Arts Board Match has to go through the Building a Better Board workshop. And the whole thing about that is building your value proposition for board members. That everybody wants their board to bring in a ton of money. Very few board members want to do fundraising. I mean, even if they've got access to that, they want to work behind the scenes. They want to meet the artists. They want to go to the parties. They want to bring their clients to the parties. They don't want to be in the trenches, calling 10 people and asking them to donate $1,000 each.
Right.
So first of all, you have to manage expectations. But second of all, at the beginning, when you're recruiting board members, you need to make it clear that one of the things that they have is a fiduciary responsibility, and that they have to help bring in the funds that keep the organization going. But you have to be realistic. So you can't be like a small group and say, all of our board members have to bring in $5,000. They'll have no board members. They're not going to get the kind of people on the board usually that have that kind of money. So first of all, it's managing expectations. Second of all, it's making sure when someone joins the board that they get integrated into the board, that there is somebody on the board that meets with them, that you do a board orientation, which I find we all do orientations for our volunteers, but very few groups do orientations for their board members. And that's the most important orientation you can do, because you have so many expectations of them. So the more you can let them know about what your expectations are, the better it is. And then last of all, you need to measure their success. So I always encourage groups to have 1-year terms for their board, but that they can be reelected, however, indefinitely, or, however long they want to set board terms. But that way, at the end of every year, your director and board chair can reach out to board members that aren't meeting expectations and talk to them and, see if they want to stay on the board, explain, like that we depend on our board to do these things. And a board position is sacred. Like a lot of groups, just anyone that wants to be on their board, oh yeah, come on our board. I think it needs to be much more refined than that. You need to interview board members. You need to make sure that you know what they want, they know what you want. You need to make sure they come to performances and understand what you do, because the best board member is passionate about what you do. And one thing for volunteer coordinators, the best board members come from your volunteers. You get to know people. They're obviously interested in what the organization is doing. They've got their boots on the ground. They've seen your mission. They've been to performances. They work behind the scenes. Keep your eyes open for people that might make a good transition into being on the board, and bring that up to your director, or if your group has a nominations committee, share that with them, because those are really a great resource for good board members.
I love that, especially the ones who are full of opinions and have a lot of feedback that they're always wanting to offer. And I mean that like in a good way, that they're coming up with ideas. They're coming up with, hey, what about this? Or what? And they're always like looking up for the organization and, hey, have you guys thought about this? I mean, really good. And I thought something was very interesting that you said. I love the fact that you said, that you have that you do an orientation, or it's important to do an orientation, because the thought of an organization not doing an orientation for their board members is almost kind of like unheard of, right? Because you would never bring a volunteer on and not orient them. So if board members are a high level, highly skilled level volunteer, why wouldn't you do that for your highly skilled volunteers, just as any other volunteer? Like that's good. That's a good thought, because it's just like, why wouldn't you do that? Okay.
Well, I think that some groups don't do it because a lot of board members come on with deep pockets and they're high level executives. So I think sometimes they think it might be demeaning to them, like to assume like that they don't know how nonprofit boards work. But you need to know your audience. So, it's like you need to make sure that the orientation that you do matches their skill level. So you're not starting with, Robert's Rules of Order and all that stuff if they're at a higher level and they've been on nonprofit boards. But it's really the last opportunity you have to really manage expectations and to get to know them and, ask them, what can we do for you? Like, what are the kind of things you're looking for when you join this board? So it's really a great opportunity to get to know them even better.
And so one of the things I love what you said was making sure that the board member gets something, like what they get out of it, right? Can you give some examples of what that might be? Because some people might mean like, or some people may hear that and think, oh, they're getting like tickets or things like that. But do you mean more like the opportunity for them to really pour into the organization with the talent that they have? Or like, what are some ways to ensure that a board member is getting out of it something that's going to keep them, to make them want to keep coming back?
Well, in the Building a Better Board workshop, we tell the groups to think about their board members as some of their top sponsors. So what are the kinds of things when you're building a sponsorship with somebody? It's give and take, like you figure out what they're going to get for their donation that's reasonable and what you can provide that you already have. So the same thing for board members. It's not about like, oh, we're going to give you free tickets. It's more about what do they want? A lot of them want leadership, so obviously that's a board member has that. But also some of them want to bring their clients to opening nights. And that's an opportunity for them to get their company to pay for those, for the VIP level experience. But as a board member, they can get extra perks like that. Some of them want professional development. Some of them want access to backstage. I mean, some people love to have experiences that the general public can't have.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
if you can invite invite one of your artists to each of your board meetings so that the board gets to know them and, gets to understand what you're doing. Or let the board come backstage for a performance, and get the feeling of what it's like to actually be in the trenches in the backstage. So it's really just exploring with them what assets the organization has and how they can share that with their board to make their board experience, leverage their board experience.
I love that. Oh, all those really, really, really amazing ideas. Okay. So I love that you said you give you suggest that a board member will stay on for about a year, because if for whatever reason, if they're not performing, you can reach out to them. So have you ever had a situation where a board member just was not maybe living up to the commitment and you had to reach out to them? Like, how did you go about doing that in a way that keep their dignity intact, but still have to have the conversation of you're not meeting expectations? Like, how do you do that?
Well, in 30 years, I've had a ton of experience with that. And actually, one of the reasons we went to 1-year terms, we used to have 3-year terms. And then it's awkward the second year if somebody's in a 3-year term and you feel like in the first year they really haven't done what they said they were going to do.
Yeah.
So I go back to Michael Spring's advice. So you don't make it personal. And usually it's really better if the board chair does it rather than the director, because the board chair is their peer. Like they've worked directly with the board chair, and that it makes it, less awkward. But you just do it in a business way. So just like you would do with an employee or volunteer that's not performing well, you just sit down with them and say, you understood. And we make our board members sign a letter of agreement when they join, saying what the financial expectation is, saying what the time commitment is. So just sit down with them and say, you haven't met the financial expectation. Or we've had a lot of board members who represent companies that give us a lot of money. And so we let them put somebody on the board then. But the person never attends meetings. So it's really awkward because we want the money,
Right.
but we also want someone on the board that can participate, because we have a small board and we have a real working board, like we're a small group. So our board is really helps us do our events and our programs and stuff. So it's really just sitting down professionally and talking about how can we make this right? What can we do on our end to make this more easy for you to attend? What are the reasons you're not attending? And what are your thoughts moving into next year? Do you think you're going to have more time to attend? And a lot of time that gives them the out to say, I really don't have the time. I changed my job, whatever. And like you said, with dignity, they can say, I don't think it's right for me to be on the board anymore. And then you can, get somebody who will do more with what you need. But it rarely is contentious because most people want to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Because that was going to be my next question. Like, did you ever have somebody that was just like, that you had to have that conversation with, and they were just like, and then you had to, like, and I was going to ask, like, how did you manage that? But like you said, that that's not really ever happened, right?
Well, we have had some contentious issues on our board in the past. When we're changing, every 5 years, we look at our mission statement. And because we're a service organization, we have a really wide range of things that we can do. So we have had some board members that are just contentious, or they don't like the direction we're going in and they're disruptive. And that is really hard to handle. And so for the most part, we behind the scenes try and get the board members that we know are supportive of what we're doing, and then have open discussion at the board meetings, but make sure that people have your back, that you've got, out of 15 board members, you've got 7 or 8 that are going to speak up and say, these are the reasons. You can even give them talking points, but then let the other person have their say, because a good board sometimes you might not be in a good direction, or maybe they do have a seed of a good idea. So you want to listen, but I just don't think being contentious or disruptive is good in any situation. So those are the kind of things that you need a strong board chair and director to really try and diffuse quickly.
Okay, I love it. I love it. So, I just want to talk just a little bit about Arts and Business Council and all the different things that you do. And I know you're here and housed in Florida and help a lot of organizations that are here in Florida. But for people who are watching who are outside of Florida, can you talk a little bit about how what you do can help them and how they, you know, as a manager of volunteers, how how they can find your organization helpful? I know one thing that you have is that you guys do like a virtual like posting for people who are looking for volunteers, right?
Well, we are strictly in Miami-Dade County in Florida. So we don't even serve all of Florida. We do a little outreach into the other local counties. One thing though, before we jump off boards, I just want to mention the website, and maybe at the end we can like put it up.
Oh yeah.
If you're interested in boards, artsboardmatch.org is a great resource. It's a website it's like a dating site, but for board members, but it's only for Miami-Dade groups. But we have a lot of resources on there. There's a whole toolkit section where you can go, and we've got samples of a lot of materials that I just talked about. So that's a really good good opportunity. But for your getting back to your question, we are actually the local chapter of Americans for the Arts. All arts and business councils are part of Americans for the Arts. So one place that anybody in the country should go and actually should be a member of Americans for the Arts. It's not an expensive membership, and they're the number1 advocacy organization for the arts. And they do a ton of programs, and it's really a great resource. So I think there's about 12 arts and business councils now in the country. So they should look and see if there's an arts and business council or a business committee for the arts in their community. Those are the two private sector development programs that Americans for the Arts is now the leader of. So on Americans for the Arts, look for private sector, and they've got a lot of resources in that. They also have a program called the Partnership Movement, which is all about national fundraising for the arts and how you can localize that. So that's another good resource. And then finally, if you don't have an Arts and Business Council or a BCA in your community, sometimes the local arts council has like an arts and business style program. Sometimes chambers do. But with COVID, we have pivoted our Arts and Business Council Miami programs virtual. So now people all over the country can participate in what we're doing. So go to our website, and there's a siren coming. I've got my windows open, so don't worry. It's not like driving right through my apartment, but sign up for our website. Go to artsbizmiami.org. There's a pop-up that says sign up to get our newsletter. We'll add you to our arts list, and then you'll get invitations to all of the programs that we're doing for our local artists. And now that a lot of them are virtual, you know, anyone can attend from anywhere. So that's a great way to get some of the resources that we're providing.
And that's really great. And it's you read my mind, because I was like, aren't there arts and business councils across the country? So you completely just, you know, answered that. And one of the things that I know, at least here in Miami, the local one, like if you are if your organization is looking for volunteers for an event, if it's a one-off or recurring, there is a place for you to put up there, you know, like if you're having a volunteer orientation or anything like that, it's a resource for you to put out the messaging. So not obviously if you're in Connecticut and you're down here, but maybe Arts and Business Council, you know, is the one in your area, look to them as a place to promote and advertise the next opportunity that you have when you're looking for volunteers, either virtually or in person or however.
Well, and there's also a lot of communities have volunteer programs like Hands On. Miami used to be here in Miami. That's a national program. 1,000 Points of Light is a national program.
Right.
So there you can like put volunteer opportunities for anywhere in the country on sites like that. So look and see if your community has that. But one thing I need to say is our volunteer coordinators are not great about adding their volunteer opportunities onto our Arts Connection website.
Okay,
and
so
our newsletter goes out to over 18,000 arts enthusiasts. So we send every other month information to the list that we have saying, send us your volunteer opportunities. And a lot of them we have to follow up. Hey, I know you've got something coming up and you need volunteers. So make sure if you have that kind of resource that you put information in it, because that's a great way to get people that might not be committed yet, but want to do, like they want to volunteer at a festival or something. And then they, like I say, it's like wading into the shallow end, and you can like pull them into the deep end.
I love it. Love it. Okay, Laura, say that again. What did you say about the volunteer coordinators? They what?
They need to post their volunteer opportunities all over the place.
Okay, I needed her to repeat that because I need you to hear it, because we're always looking for where are we going to find volunteers? And the good thing about it,
I always hear from volunteer coordinators, oh, we don't have enough volunteers, but they don't take the time to post their volunteer opportunities. Also, a lot of newspapers you can post for free volunteer listings. So, I mean, it's not like you're going to get 1,000 takes on that, but if you get one great volunteer from that, it's worth the effort.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another thing that I love about it, because the Arts and Business Council is really committed to promoting diversity and inclusion, when you put your opportunity up on their websites, you can almost guarantee that it's going to be going to a wide variety of communities and touch people that you may have never had the opportunity to promote your opportunity in front of. So just also another thing to think about. Okay.
Well, one other thing on volunteers, a lot of the companies like their employees to have team building, kind of things that they can do. So if you've got a big enough volunteer opportunity, a big enough organization where you can do this kind of thing, reach out to like banks and local companies and ask them if they want to put together a team of like 10 volunteers to work on a show or something. So if you've got an organization with the wherewithal to do it, it's a great opportunity to reach out to like banks and FPL and big companies in your community. A lot of them have volunteer programs built in. So you can connect with the employee that does the volunteer programs, and then they'll promote it to their employees. So that's a great way to get employees, and also work with your development team on that, because that's really a great benefit. Employee engagement is really a great benefit for when you're building sponsorship opportunities. Also, think about, depending on what you're recruiting volunteers for, churches, like you can get a really inexpensive ad in church bulletins. And there's a lot of opportunity for volunteers with that kind of thing. Also chambers, a lot of chambers have opportunities to post events or volunteer opportunities. So kind of think outside the box if you're looking to recruit new volunteers.
I love that. The chambers, that's something I hadn't thought about, but I like that. Ooh, yes, 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 yes. Love it. Okay. So Laura, just as a recap, if people want to reach you or find out more about the board or anything, the board match or anything else that we've talked about, do you want to just kind of recap and tell us how they can find out about it? How can they get in touch with you?
Yes. So my email is laura@artsbizmiami, ARTSBIZ Miami.org.
Okay. So I have two more questions for you. The first one, we're going to play my game. You know,
okay.
You love it. 3,000 questions about me. Okay, so I want you to choose a number 1 to 3,000. I'll ask you a question and then you answer it and then I answer it. So go.
Okay. 888.
Okay, let's see. Okay, I like this. Okay.
Okay.
What is your least favorite personality trait you like about yourself?
I think my least favorite trait is that I am kind of thin-skinned. And going back to what I told you about the best advice I get, I don't have a good poker face. So if something annoys me or I don't like if I'm in a meeting and I think like the person is crazy, I think I let that show on my face. So I really want to learn I try to do better, but sometimes I don't think about it. So I really want to learn to improve that.
Okay. Well, mine is I overthink things, like overthink them to the point where I won't move or I won't do anything because I've thought of all of the positives and all of the negatives of every scenario that could happen instead of just moving and doing what I need to do. And so yeah, and so so I've been really trying to work on that and do better, and a lot of that, like for me, like I have to be very careful about like watching the news because I'll be like stuck
Oh, me too.
in 24 and we're like today. So I've had, excuse me, I've had to learn how to like hear whatever, but then don't worry about the future because you can't change it, you can't do a thing about it. What are you doing at this moment? Oh, it's time to eat, go eat. Like really focus on being in the moment. Because
one thing that I found during COVID is the Calm app. It's like it is a meditation app, but it's all about me being mindful. Because I do that too. I get in, they call it a doom spiral. Like when you start watching the news and then you're like, oh, we're hopeless. But I really find that doing like a 10-minute calm meditation thing just recenters me.
Yeah. What's it called again?
Calm, CALM.
And it's just an app you can go like on iTunes or whatever.
Yeah, you have to pay for it, but there's free ones where there's free meditation apps. It's just like guided. I mean, I was always rolled my eyes at meditation. Like I thought it was really
that's the
COVID. Like I was like, I need to try something, and several people recommended it to me, and I love it. It's like very soothing. It's nature sounds. And it's uplifting. Like you finish like I'm in charge of me. That's kind of the message.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Okay, so the last question that I have for you is, what is your greatest accomplishment or the thing that you are most proud of in life? It could be personal, it could be professional, but just, a challenge or something that you had to overcome and maybe you didn't think you were going to be able to do it and you did. And it was just like, after that, you're like, I could do anything.
Oh my gosh, that's a really big picture question. I think I'm really most proud of what I've done at work with the Arts and Business Council, that I've really been the face of the organization for so long. And I'm really proud that we're celebrating our 35th anniversary this year. And we were looking back at all the milestones that we've had with the organization. There were 2 directors before me. But we've done when I look back and I see all that we've accomplished, and we've really done impactful programs for artists, for arts organizations through major things like AIDS and the 9/11 and Hurricane Andrew. And then also just things like Arts Board Match and, creating programs to relate to needs. So I think I'm really proud of the legacy that I'm leaving for the Arts and Business Council.
And a legacy indeed, because it's phenomenal. And I love creating programs to fulfill the need. That's powerful. That is powerful. Well, Laura, thank you so much. This has been so great. It has been so great chatting with you. And to those of you who are still listening, I want to thank you so much for joining us for this episode of From the Suggestion Box, navigating feedback, the good, the bad, and the say what. So I hope you subscribe because you don't want to miss another episode. subscribe and tune in next time, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.